Welcome back to the Seven Figure Flipping podcast today. Today, my co-host, Dr. Sherry Fluellen, and I have a special guest, my friend and fellow military guy, Dairius. You guys ready for this? Kawewehi. Did I do it right, DK?
Yeah, I was spot on.
My man. He's got a Hawaiian last name, so I had to practice it before, and that was my delivery. Sounds like I did a decent job. So, DK, I'm so grateful to have you here, man. DK came to our world. He was raising capital for his deals, and you guys know, like Bill, our the kind of leader of the community, great capital raisers, raised hundreds of millions of dollars. So just training on capital raising. DK came to capital raising. I invited him out to Cancun. Now he's a member of our community, and he has a really cool story, primarily a buy and hold guy. And he's just an awesome dude, and I'm so grateful to have you here. DK, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, Dr. Sherry.
Absolutely.
DK, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and, you know, what got you started into real estate? I know you're a military guy, and, you know, what was that journey to get to the point today, and where do you see yourself going?
No, I love that question, and thank you again for having me on, for extending this opportunity to be on the podcast. Super grateful to be part of the community. So my journey towards real estate, I would say, initially began when I was looking at buying my first like primary residence. Like the investing world was kind of like far from the mindset. I think I was kind of heading into it that most of us on this path of, you know, graduate high school, go get a good job or go to college, and then after that you kind of, you know, rise in the ranks of your job, and then eventually you have a family and you buy a home. And so that was kind of on that trajectory. I was getting stationed back home actually in Pearl Harbor, and I was like, oh well, the logical thing to do is to buy a place up there because I'm from there. I'm going to be stationed there for about 3 or 4 years. And so that's kind of what got my initial like itch towards real estate. But I wouldn't call that anywhere near like a proper investment. So fast forward to you know, this global pandemic we had, and I was getting ready to go on deployment. And my girlfriend, who is now my wife, unfortunately like lost her job that we thought like, oh, this was like a sure for sure job for her, because she was like one of the only qualified quality assurance people in the food industry in that company. And just out of the blue, at the opening of the pandemic, the company laid off like over half the staff, and she was one of those. So it put into question of like, well, how do we, you know, recover from like, you know, a good portion of our income for us? Like we weren't struggling, you know, we could live off of just mine, but it kind of really started the gears turning of how we look at creating income and diversifying those income streams. So that was probably around, you know, 2020 going into 2021, and I knew I was going to get orders cut somewhere. I didn't know exactly where at the time, but I knew I was going to go on shore duty. And I was like, well, that's the perfect opportunity to finally have like quote unquote normal hours and build another stream of income. And that's when kind of real estate resurfaced into a potential to do that. So I was looking at real estate or other, you know, either buying a business or starting a business from scratch. So I bought a bunch of books with me on deployment, downloaded a lot of podcasts, because, you know, when you're in the middle of the ocean on a tin can in a submarine, you got some time. So I just tried to fill the limited time I had, you know, when I wasn't standing watch and stuff, to kind of grow my mindset around how we're producing income and what we're doing with the hours that we have. So end of deployment, getting orders here to the DC area. That's when I reached out to people I knew, like friends of mine that were real estate agents, other friends that I saw that they're kind of doing this like fix and flip thing. And I was like, hey, do you know anyone just doing like buy and hold, like just boring rentals, like not in Hawaii, like somewhere much cheaper? So some mutual friends of mine connected me to a community that was investing out of state. And that really cascaded my journey towards looking into the BRRRR strategy, and really even more so than the actual like acquisition strategy, but just learning how to like open my mindset, set goals that were outside of just like my military career and my professional career, but like setting goals of like, what do I want to accomplish in life? Because I think, all through high school and college, my mind was like, oh, I'm going to go to the military and that's it. That's the pinnacle of my life. But I finally haven't had an opportunity to kind of expand that mindset, be around people that were having these crazy goals and they were wanting to do some amazing things for the community. And so that kind of pushed me towards this path. I did a year-long mentorship one-on-one, and then since then have just continuously been kind of learning and being part of other communities to grow in this space. So where I'm looking at to head for in the next couple of years, I would like to first hit financial freedom, and a goal I set for myself 3 years ago was December of 2026. With then the next steps of being starting a mentorship for former foster youth and current foster youth, like the young adults that had just left high school and they're kind of getting their initial start in their early career. And so that's a space that I would like to impact.
DK, I love the intentionality that you brought while you were on the sub to figure out, okay, how do I move forward? How do I figure this thing out? And I know like binge listening to podcasts, to audiobooks, to reading, that is something that is often part of the investor journey. And I'm curious, during that time, what was the most important mindset shift for you that happened out of the reading and the learning and all of that?
Yeah, that's such a powerful question. I mean, I think at the core, it all starts from education because I had to really think. I'm like, man, how did I learn the things that I was able to learn throughout my life and equate it back to sports? I mean, at some point, I could read the material, the strategies that we're doing, look at the chalkboard of the plays, but it's really having that mentor. And the biggest thing I learned throughout this journey is having an abundance mindset. It's going to sound as cliche as it sounds, like I hear this in every single community I'm part of, but the more I'm part of the community, the more that actually is true. We realize that there's a lot out there for all of us. We're all on our own journeys. We're all on this path of our life, and we're all just living it in parallel. And so the more we can think of all the possibilities that are out there, I actually had a great conversation with one of my buddies last Sunday about this concept of, when you are looking to accomplish something in your life and you're manifesting it, right? Again, going back to sports, I mean, you think of all those athletes are really just envisioning themselves on that podium, winning that medal, winning, the championship, applying that same concept towards, in this case, business and real estate, also has that power of like allowing your mind to just like, have that abundance. It resurfaces in a lot of books that I read. So one of the first books that I got recommended to read was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. A book written in the 1930s, 1940s, that those principles still stand today. And one that I'm currently reading is called The Wealthy Gardener. And that book also harps on those same concepts. And so now I'm starting to see it the more that I've been in the past couple of years of like, yeah, this is truly important to have that abundance mindset in all aspects of life.
DK, the abundance mindset. I'm just curious, can I ask, did you have that growing up in your childhood? And if not, like, what happened?
I did not. I did not have that as a kid growing up, honestly. Well, I would say there was a turning point at some point in my life where I started to kind of think that I had more of that abundance. Um, but in my early years of my childhood, I had alluded before that I want to impact the foster youth community, and the reason for that is I grew up in foster care for about 10, 11 years, so more than half of my childhood. And so my early stages of going through several foster care homes, and I went through the legal system for my first 2 years in foster care, 2.5 years, just going to court every single week for 2.5 years straight to testify against my birth parents for all the things that happened to me. I did not have an abundance mindset back then. I had, I guess you could call it scarcity mindset, or more of a fearful mindset of like, I actually didn't blame my parents for what was happening. I blamed myself because I thought there was something wrong with me. Like the abuse that I suffered and a lot of the challenges I faced, I always equated it back to like, what did I do wrong? Is there something I could have done differently? And so I was always fearful of how I was coming across to people. So it wasn't until I eventually got adopted by the family I'm with now and started being around people that were seeing more potential in me than I saw in myself. That's when I started had that abundance mindset. Uh, I didn't think I'd make it past my 10th birthday 21 years ago, and here I am. I'm super lucky to be here. Uh, and the abundance started to come through of like, what could I do with my life, given that I was given a second chance to impact and have a positive influence in the world. So I was like, well, my logical thing for me was help serve the community that helps give me a chance to succeed in life and what I deemed it to be. I always take academics super seriously, like regardless of the situation that I was in. I just loved learning. You could call me the teacher's pet, the nerd, whatever it was, and I take all of them, with the open heart. But the military path is really what I thought. Like pretty early on when I was in middle school and I got adopted, was like that's the path I want to do to serve my country, to serve my community. And now that's kind of evolved into something different. So I've just kind of carried that with me, but only recently started to realize that I could equate that to something that I guess would seem like not taboo, but not a lot of people talk about money where I come from. But having that extensible mindset of abundance and wealth, not to just be rich for riches sake, but how you could use that to, truly step into your purpose.
I love your story, DK. It seems like you had some trials and challenges that are, a lot of people don't experience, like very hard. Like what you went through was very hard. And it seems like because of that, you took that energy, all that trauma, all that just hard stuff as a kid, and you pointed it in a direction to go as far away from that as possible. Like, I have to get myself to a better place. So you do good in school, you focus on your grades, you become the quote unquote teacher's pet, and you go, I'm going to choose this military path and succeed there. And you succeed there. And then what I'm hearing is you're getting further and further away. And as you go away and you've got this drive that's supercharged by all this past trauma, you start to then look back and go, how, wow, this is like good. Now, how can I do good for others? What was it that helped me? And it sounds like that foster family that took you in at the end, who, they accepted you and likely had some influence on a positive change in your life. And then you join the military, there's a positive change in your life. And then you join a community, and then you get around the next set of people who have this positive change in your life. And then now your mind is starting to go to, how can I be that guide and be that same positive light and show those people there is a way out of this and there is another side. Does that feel like I'm capturing that appropriately?
Yeah, you're capturing it like definitely spot on. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think what that word abundance, you grab the word abundance because you come from this place where you feel like there's something wrong with me. Like, it's like a lot of just negative. And then as you have success, you find abundance. And that to me is the difference. Like, they have the adage, you're the average of the 5 people you're around.
Yep.
And of course, that's like a cliche, but there's some truth to that.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm sitting around and I stay at home in Detroit, Michigan, where I'm from, and everybody's negative and doing negative things, I'll be the 6th person doing those negative things. If I get into a room with people like you and Dr. Sherry Fluellen and all these other amazing people, then somehow even little old me will figure out how to not, how to assimilate to that environment. It's like human nature. What do you think of that, Dr. Sherry?
I love listening to how you so expertly, Adam, kind of summarized what you're seeing and hearing out of DK. DK, I've been following you on Facebook, and you write some really powerful thoughts. And one of the posts that stuck out to me, you talked about learning to be uncomfortable or be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I'd like to hear how that is playing a factor in your life right now, that perspective of learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
No, I love that question, and I can't take credit for that phrase. That's definitely learned from one of my mentors, CJ Khalil, and his wife Jasmine, because they would preach that to us all the time. Like, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I was like, well, that makes sense. And when I think back to like all the situations I've been in my life where I had faced uncertainty, going down paths that I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I think I had embraced that at a very young age, and just being able to now take that as one of my superpowers, right? Like, I've been in a whole lot of situations where, I'm sitting in a courtroom full of like a whole bunch of people I don't even know, and I have to testify, right? Like, that's a pretty scary situation. And so everything I've done since then, I don't think has been as scary as that. And so now I'm trying to embrace this aspect of like, it's okay not to have all the answers. I think growing up, I'm always taught that like you have to have all this information, and then you got to ace the test, and you get to life, and you're like, well, life doesn't really operate that way, right? You got to go in with some uncertainty to think that you're gonna make it on the other side. And I did. I made it on the other side of my early childhood. I made it on the other side of high school, because that the statistic for those of us that are in the community, I mean, not a lot of us graduate high school, let alone have a chance to go to college. I actually did not want to study engineering at all. Like, take me as far away from math and science as possible. But I leaned into that uncertainty of am I capable of this? I asked my physics teacher, I'm like, hey, I'm looking to, well, one, I was actually going to enlist in the Marine Corps, so that's a whole separate story.
Should have done it. Let's go.
And my career college counselor, my therapist, and my mom that adopted me kind of guided me towards a different path. And so, because I was like, well, regardless, like at some point I do plan to get higher education, but I am never paying a dime out of my own pocket to do that, because I just didn't want to go down a path of debt. And so they had persuaded me, like, hey, there's like scholarships out there you can apply for. And so I kind of, that was my first, like, I would say, intentional thought process to go down this path of accepting the unknown, the uncertainty, right? Being comfortable in that uncomfortableness. And because the Navy really likes people that have STEM degrees, so that was like, all right, we're gonna figure out how to do that. And so I talked to my physics teacher, and I was like, give me the easiest engineering major that I could apply for. He's like, oh, mechanical engineering. I was like, got it. And so I applied to all these schools to study mechanical engineering. And so again, I was like extremely uncomfortable. I'm moving to a state I've never been to before. I don't know anybody there. I'm moving 5,000 miles away from home. And I was doing a major that I never really wanted to do, because I knew myself. I wasn't super great at math and science. And then I talked with a mentor that was there over the couple of years that we overlapped. He was like our like advisor, but he was like active duty. And he talked to me about the submarine force, and I was like, well, that sounds extremely hard. I did a tour on it for a summer, and I was like, that's hard, but the people I met was amazing, right? And back to Adam's point, when you're surrounding yourself by the 5 people you want to become, right? You're going to be the average of those 5. I was like, I like the mentality of the people in the submarine force, specifically because of one of my mentors that was at Purdue with me. And so that, again, was like my next intentional thing. And so now, having pivoted from active service and looking down this path of entrepreneurship, I was like, I need to, again, lean into this unknown. No one in my immediate family circle has gone down this path. And so I was actually faced with a lot of opposition. I mean, I bounced off, I talked to my wife, and I was talking to like other friends of mine, and like, I think with good intentions, people have their thoughts of trying to protect you, right? And I was like, well, there's something really tugging at me to do this. It is extremely uncomfortable. I'm investing a lot of my time and dollars to do different things. But as I heard this term of being comfortable being uncomfortable, that's where I was like, well, that's where true growth happens,
Mm.
right? If you never challenge yourself, you never change your situations, you're just going to have the same results, if not less, right? You're never growing. And so I've just learned to kind of embrace it. When I feel that uncomfortableness going on, I'm like, all right, I'm I'm appropriately challenging myself, and I'm going to grow from this experience, and I'm going to get to the other side. Whether I'm beaten, battered, and bruised, like we'll get there.
Oh man, this is, we could do this for hours talking about this, but I have such admiration for your story. I can relate so much to your upbringing, and I can see your future. I have so much belief in you. Like, I know because of where you came from, I can totally see where you're going. And I find this really interesting. So those of us who have trauma in our lives in a meaningful way, that, it's like almost a miracle that you get to where you are. I feel like one of two paths happens. Now, Dr. Plun, you could tell me if I'm crazy, but that trauma either breaks you a lot of times, or it, like you have PTSD, you have all these like things that you just have a hard time getting out of those, and you got to do a lot of work to recover from that. But then I see another group of people who have insane trauma in their background, and they have post-traumatic growth, PTG.
Never heard that term before. I like that. I'm gonna use that.
Those people, and when I hear stories about some of these like world leaders or billionaires or whatever, it's like, why, like what makes them, they're running away from that trauma. They're having this growth in their life. And, those people, in my opinion, they like you, DK, you've got a greater appreciation for life. You have a strong sense of purpose. You have deep relationships. Like, you're just very, you just appreciate life for what it is. And it makes things that are hard, they don't feel as significant, right? When you've been through something so challenging like you have. So I'm just really in all of your story, right? I don't have a good question for you. I'm just like, I'm in all of your story, and I'm super proud of you. I am curious, so you're obviously in our community, and you're building your real estate investment company, which I know you're going to do a great job of, and you're going to give back to those foster kids. What made you take the jump and jump in with us? Like, why 7-figure flipping? Why did you make the decision to come to Cancun? I'm just really curious, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I really appreciate, being able to share this time with you both, and kind of share a little bit of my story, my journey, and just having people like you, in along this life path is just I feel uplifted. And so what made me choose 7-figure flipping? Well, so Adam knows this, but we're both in a mastermind group called the War Room, and it's full of veterans, and it's not just real estate related, but just veterans that are just going to go and take on life. And earlier this year, I was talking to someone from the group, and I was talking about some of the struggles I was having, like in my business the past couple of years, because business is never sunshine and rainbows as it shows on social media. And so like the past 2+ years have just been a gauntlet for me. And I was also transitioning out of the military. And one of the struggles I had was capital raising. I had early success in 2022, and then kind of thought lines, heartbeat. And so I knew I needed to change, something. And someone recommended, it's like, hey, have you done Bill Allen's challenge? I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, hey, just look it up and go and do it. And I was like, okay. And so that was like January, February this year. And actually, I had my intention journal. It's like right behind my laptop. But my theme this year is intentionality, right? Because it's my first year out of the military, and I was like, I really just want to be actually like everything I'm doing for a purpose, and it's going to be driving towards a lot of the goals that I have set, but make it very actionable. Something I haphazardly did for the past couple of years. I was like, all right, I got to change this, and we're going to write them down, and we're just going to chunk out to like 1 or 2 things that we're doing every day. And so I was like, okay, let me try this challenge. And I've dabbled on social media for the past 2 to 3 years. I have spurts where I was posting pretty often, and I just got to a point, like for me, like it was just mentally exhausting to just be that present on my social media. And especially when it came to this aspect of capital raising. So I was like, okay, you know what? Open minds. I'm going to lean into this and we're going to do it because, again, we're going to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I'm extremely uncomfortable when I'm on camera by myself. Like here, comfortable because I can talk to you guys. You're gonna talk to me and answer questions and we can banter back and forth. But when the camera is on, there's no one on the other side. Like that for me, it was like one of the biggest fears I've had in the past couple of years. So I was like, okay, everyone I talk to that has done this challenge, they come out on the other side. Because for me, it wasn't a matter of like, you know, how much capital am I going to raise, but it's like, what growth can I have from that? And so I would log in every day and I would, you know, watch the video, then I would post on my Facebook Live. And, you know, the first couple of days, I was like, man, gut wrenching. Like I had one person that jumped down and then they popped out. And it's like, I'm just talking to myself and talking to a wall. But over the course of like the first week or two, I was like, it kind of felt meditative. I would just kind of talk about what I did that day, literally just like a vlog of just like get comfortable, just talking to myself, kind of like in a mirror with live feedback. And I really grew on the other side of that. And that's actually after I did partway through that challenge, actually, Bill reached out and he's like, hey, DK, I want you to be part of this Capital Leap. I'm doing like a 5-day, like a foot funding challenge. So I was like, all right. I mean, because I'm on this path of being intentional this year, there's been specific opportunities that have come my way as a result. And I see it as like life is telling me something, jump on it when I have the opportunity. Otherwise, it may never happen again. So I jumped on it and I did that. And I was like, wow, mind blown about everything I was learning and the mindset shifts and everything. And then after that 5-day one, I saw Adam post on like a random, I want to say it was, I think I remember it being like a Saturday or a Sunday. I was on my way into the skiff and he posted, he was talking about, hey, we got 1 seat left for Cancun. You know, I'm going to just randomly choose from whoever comments here. And I was like, I'll throw my name in the hat, you know, because again, life was like putting an opportunity in front of me. And it happened like kind of in a cascading way. 30-day 500K challenge, the 5-day challenge, the Cancun opportunity, and right after that was the summit,
Scale summit
before the actual trip.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know, I'll just keep taking these opportunities that happens as they came along, and that's when I realized like the community is really just providing so much value. People truly and genuinely just want to help people grow, and I was like, man, I'd love to be part of that. And so it was a no-brainer for me when I was in Cancun, especially meeting people in person. Like I stood there, I was like, well, I know Adam and I know Bill, but so does everyone, and I know Marcus Long because we've been talking for over the past year as I transitioned out of the military. But when I got there, I was like, I didn't quite see the people that I was familiar with, and you know, there's some people that came by and helped me out right on day one as I was checking in and saying like, oh, you got to meet this person, you got to meet this person. And no, I was like, yes, this is a group that just supports, you know, growth in all aspects.
DK, your story about this year and how you're really working to embody intentionality is so inspiring. Intentionality is one of my core values. And so it's like you're a kindred spirit as I hear you talking about it. And I also hear you, there's this underlying belief that the experiences and the choices that you've made in life are snowballing and building on each other so that the next experience that comes up is probably one that you couldn't have predicted. But the belief is that that's the right experience now that I get to be a part of and choice I get to make. And I think that belief is so powerful for me to hear. And I'm sure for a lot of the listeners to hear, because sometimes we don't know, how does all these random things that happen in life, how do the traumas, how do all of these things fit together? And they do. They're creating and shaping us to be the person we are today, and will continue to be that. So ultimately, you can have the impact that you feel called to have with kids and young adults that have been through some of the things that you've been through. And so I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing these things with everyone as you're peeling back the layer of your why around real estate investing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, wholly agree. I mean, as not so fun as some of those experiences are that we go through in our life. I mean, life is not full of sunshine and rainbows every day. We're gonna have those storms that we truly have to get through, but we know on the other side of that, right? If you truly embrace it, there's gonna be growth. There's always something you're gonna learn from it. And I always got this question when I was growing up, especially from friends that I opened up to about what was happening in my life. And they're like, well, if you could go back and like have like not those experiences, if you had parents that actually like you know cared about you and um you didn't have to go through the trauma you went through, would you change it? And it took me a little bit to think it over. I'm like, well, that was not a fun experience. Like those are scars and memories that I'll never get rid of. um but I was like, well, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have met you guys, right? My friends that I was going to school with. I wouldn't have met, my now wife, and gone through um, the military path I went through. So I was like, well, a lot of it just kind of set me up to prepare me for the next thing that I didn't know, like you were saying. And I don't know what's coming next after this part of my journey. I have no idea. And when I look at my real estate sort of experience or venture, you could say, I'm still very early in this journey. I have a ton to learn in the process, and there's a ton of unknown and uncertainties that are ahead of me. And I went through like one of my biggest losses this past March, and that was actually one of the reasons that I, sought some community support. But from that, I even stepped back from that. I mean, it was a huge financial loss for me, and kind of a mental reset for a little bit. But I'm realizing, I'm like, well, maybe I had to go through that to prepare for the next thing that I have no idea what's coming. And that's the hardest thing, I think, being in this kind of this pathway. There's so few people on this journey. If we look at our inner circles of people that we grew up with, and it's just wrought with uncertainty. You have no idea. You could be facing, who knows, maybe weeks of challenges. It could be months. It could be years, and you have no idea when that onslaught's going to be done. And then you start seeing everything that you've kind of been planting the seeds for. And so I'm still on that. I'm like, well, if I continue to surround myself with people that are also on this path, and eventually, things will change, and I'll start to see the growth that we've been kind of envisioning and manifesting. So that's kind of what helps me get through.
I literally got chills on my arms as you were sharing the part of your story where you were asked, and you reflected back, would I choose to not have to go through that? And you said, actually, it's led me to where I'm at today. That literally gave me chills. So incredibly powerful.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I'm a raving DK fan. Love having you, DK. Your story's super powerful. I'm so confident in, because you're such a resilient guy. You've experienced so much. I know if you set your mind to accomplishing goals, you're going to do it. I'm excited to see what you do over the next year in our community, in our world. And I'm grateful that you came on today, man. And I know you've got a lot of good deals in the pipeline. And I know if you're looking for investors or whatever, how can people reach out to you if they want to get involved in what you're doing in real estate or with the foster kids?
I appreciate that. Best way, so if people want to kind of get to know like who I am, I have a link tree they can look up. It's just D and then my last name, D Kawewehi. And I can drop the link to you guys afterward as well. So that has podcasts. So actually, speaking of podcasts and giving back to the community, so one of the early thoughts I had as I kind of entered this journey, like 2020, 2021, 2022 time period, was what could I do in the near term to give back to the community? But knowing at the time, active duty, didn't have a whole lot of income of my own to provide like huge monetary support. I had a mentor of mine outside of real estate. He's more of like in the media space. He's like, well, why don't you tell your story? And up to this point, I've never publicly talked about it, only with like friends of mine that I grew up with. Um, obviously my family, my therapist. I've known him for at least 20 years now, but I've never publicly talked about it. And I'm not ashamed of it. I'm actually like very comfortable talking about it, because I've gone through like 15 or 16 years of therapy, and we battled those challenges internally. And he was like, well, if you find other organizations that could use someone to help provide another perspective, right? There's another path out there instead of the um, that fearful mindset, right? That scarcity mindset, and provide like, hey, despite the challenges that we go through at such a young age, we can really forge the direction that we want to head our lives in. I was like, I really, I don't know. I just felt like kind of fearful to do that, but I was like, I'll lean into it. There's a reason why he came into my life, and there's a reason why I had the experiences I had, so I could share it. So I eventually reached out to like 50 organizations across the country to just pitch the idea of hey, this is who I am, and I would like to see if I could share some support to your community if needed. If you guys do webinars or a podcast or a blog of some sort, and lean into that. And so on my link tree, you'll see some podcasts that I've done talking about my story. I'm talking like in depth, like we get real detailed. It's like 1.5, 2 hours long. And so that was kind of my initial start to find ways that I can impact the community with just what I have, and that's my voice. And so I eventually plan to get deeper into that community. I sit in a few boards in the foster youth community to help provide that. They call it lived experience. And I sit on boards with those that are CPS workers, those that are CASA, like advocates for youth that are going through the system. And it just provided me such a appreciation for everyone that's kind of surrounding that community to help provide that support. And there's just so much love and care there. So that's on my link tree. For those that want to get in touch with me directly, just feel free. You can email me at Dairius at Akamai Property Group. On my Instagram, I go by Meadows and Rentals, and that is essentially an analogy of the things that I'm going to be challenging myself in. So Meadows could be referred to, service. I'm currently running some marathons this year. I plan to do an Ironman in the future, near future. And so that's, my page where I really just push myself in both my physical and mental endurance as well as business.
I love it, DK. I love it. So check him out on his Instagram or on his Linktree page, which I'm sure you can find on his Instagram, or his email. Don't try to spell his last name because it's hard.
Don't worry about it.
Just look him up on the internet. We'll drop the links for you, buddy. It was such a pleasure talking to you today, man. It's always great to hear your story and how you're letting your story drive your future and your goals and impacting others, man. So I really appreciate it. I really do. I'm just here hanging out, listening to your story. I could do this all day. So thanks, brother. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come here. I loved it.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
All right. Reach out to DK if you want to talk to him, and please go in and leave us a 5-star review. That's how we can help and impact others. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.